Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Progressive Overload podcast. Have you ever thought about strengthening multiple areas of your life at the same time? Then you've come to the right place. Our goal is to help you identify ways that you might need a progressive overload to break through those plateaus and keep you growing. Welcome to the Progressive Overload podcast, everybody. It's good to have you today. I'm sitting here with T-Money Tyson Burwell, the Kyokin Kid. It's just me, and I am Joe Copeland, your host. I'm so glad that you tuned in this week to just get a little bit better, learn a little bit more, and just to hang out with us.
Just me, huh?
Yeah,
we got to work on your confidence a little bit.
Just me.
Yeah, no.
Well, yeah, that's coming.
You're too nice.
I know. Today we're going to talk about how to build yourself an exercise program based on your goals. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this many times before. We're going to go at it from a little bit more in-depth view, kind of talk about what your program should look like if your goal is building strength, building muscle, endurance, power, all sorts of different angles there. And going to go into depth on what exercises you should be doing, sets, reps, weight, tempo, literally everything. And yeah.
I think this is a good podcast for beginner lifters.
Yeah.
I think we'll cover up some good topics that I wish I had a more in-depth understanding of when I first started lifting.
Right.
So I think it's good.
Okay, cool. I like it. I think so too. All right, and the question of the day. Oh no, I don't like that. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah, it was weird. All right.
Let's see what it is. Keep you guys on the.
All right. Which decade do you love the most, or which decade would you like to go back to and live in?
Decade.
And let's just go like the 1900s.
Oh, okay. So if you could go,
live
in the past,
live in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever.
I'm gonna say I would like to visit.
Yeah, visit. Yeah, maybe not live.
You talk about some hard times, man.
Yeah, that's true.
We
couldn't make it.
I like toilet paper and air conditioning,
indoor plumbing.
Yeah, all that's some good stuff. I like the grocery store down the road.
Yes. Oh, we're soft. Even though we think we're hard, we're soft.
No. We live in the absolute best time to be alive right now, ever before.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, we all like
to survive, anyways.
Well, we all like to complain about how hard everything is, but man, it is actually the easiest it's ever been.
Yeah.
Even being poor today is way better than even being semi-rich back in
for sure.
back in the medieval times. To answer the question, I would love to go back and see the Edo period of Japan and actually see Miyamoto Musashi and some of his.
So when was that?
Some of his duels. That was 1500s.
Oh, okay. So you went way back.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I think if I had to choose, though, I would really love to just witness some of those sword duels to the death. I think that would be humbling.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I get that. Yeah, that's cool. I was thinking more like more recent history.
Okay.
Like I would love to go and have fun, like the Roaring '20s, and just go bootlegging and all that fun stuff. Yeah. As long as my safety is guaranteed.
Well, that's the thing. Even whenever you visit, you hope to have like a bubble of safety around you. Like maybe like you're a ghost, There
we go. Yeah.
Or something like you're a fly on the wall kind of situation. Yeah. Because I don't want to be like involved.
No. No. The 50s would be fun too. But every decade is like, that would not be fun.
Something new and something different.
Yeah. Anyways.
Okay, let's before we move on.
Yeah.
What's the place you would absolutely not want to visit?
Not want to visit. I don't know. Do you have one? Because I'm trying to think.
I'm thinking like Civil War, World War II, maybe.
Yeah, that would be tough. That would be
for
sure.
Awful.
Yeah. I mean, I say I'm obsessed with Vikings. You know that. It's my life goal is to be a Viking, a Christian Viking. But I don't think I would last out there. So I would love to visit it, but it would definitely be one of those things where I would want a bubble of safety.
Yeah. Well, not to distract too much from our topic of today, but did you know Christianity was actually the death of the Vikings? Yeah. Because Vikings converted.
European,
converted, and then they were like, you weren't allowed to pillage anymore.
Nope.
So it killed the Viking era.
Yeah. Man, I love Viking.
Yeah, there's a lot of good history there.
All right. So let's go with this topic, and we're going to kind of talk about different goals that you can have within your programming, and we're just going to assume for this topic, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's going to be kind of gym related, as in weightlifting related.
Yeah.
If we're talking about running a 5K or running a marathon or a triathlon, that's a topic for a different day. And people can get perfectly fit and healthy doing that too. That's just not what we like to talk about and what we're passionate about.
Right.
I mean, I'm not anyways. But I will have somebody like that on the podcast in the future.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I've made some friend groups in Wichita that are all triathlon
just
guys.
Endurance athletes.
Yeah. And so I'm the only like strength trainer out of the group, or only strength trainer.
Those people are built different.
Yes, they are.
They have mindsets.
Yeah, they're psychotic.
Yeah. They enjoy punishment to themselves. What a mental battle it is to run 50 miles or whatever they do.
Yeah, and then bike 50.
Yeah,
and then swim 5. Yeah, anyways.
It's ridiculous.
Whole different thing. Anyways, so let's just kind of go down the line what a program should look like. The kind of the main goals that we're going to do today are just strength. I want to build strength. And then hypertrophy. I want to build muscle. And then muscular endurance. I want to be able to use my muscles for a long period of time, kind of thing like that. And then muscular power, which is just quick, fast output, powerful output.
Right.
And then we kind of, at the end, I want to bring it all together and talk about how this can all relate to weight loss.
Right.
Or fat loss, I should say, because I want all of those things, but at the end of the day, at this point in my journey, fat loss is the main goal for myself. But I want to do that the right way, where I'm also building muscle.
And I guess we should say that pretty much any type of strength training, hypertrophy, is that word? Hypertrophy, as some people call it. Yeah, hypertrophy, or muscular endurance, or even training for power, all of which are actually going to increase your caloric output.
Exactly.
And so each one of these will actually help lose fat and adipose tissue.
Yeah, for sure. We can circle back around to that and talk about the scientific reasoning that happens.
So let's start out with let's go from the first one. Let's start with strength.
Okay, cool.
Right. So what is the goal of a strength training athlete? So
their goal, like we've talked before, is to lift as much weight as possible, to have as strong of muscles as possible. And typically the person with this kind of goal kind of goes the powerlifting route, where they're focusing on the big barbell lifts.
Right.
Yeah.
I really enjoy strength training. It's my favorite form of actual.
Is it?
As far as strength and conditioning training is weight, as a strength training style, powerlifting style.
Yeah.
With the goal of, like you said, being able to lift and output as much strength as I possibly can, to lift heavy things and be able to put it back down safely and effectively.
Yep.
Which in my sport is most of the time bodies that I'm picking up and putting down.
But not safely.
Yes. Very violently.
I want to wreck those bodies.
Yeah. So, which really helps with the grappling aspect too.
Of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But what would you say the mindset is?
So the mindset of a power lifter or a strength athlete is they are going to do whatever they can to make the lift efficient, and they're going to find different techniques to get the lift up by any means necessary, for the most part. And you kind of go with that mindset. Like if I'm putting a client through a strength phase, I have to make sure that I prep their mindset for them to go into that, because like some clients are in that strength phase right now, and they're like, this feels different. I'm not like metabolically worn out at the end of the workout like I'm used to. And so it's a different mindset, because you're not doing tons of reps. You're taking long rest periods. You're not just completely wiped out by the end of it, for the most part, if it's programmed properly.
That's right. Physiologically, I mean, your muscles aren't pumped full of blood. There's not a whole lot of muscle tearing that's going on to try to get as much of that growth and build up back in the tissue. It's more about actually making the muscle more dense.
Yeah.
With the muscle density there's more actual fibers that are corded better.
That are recruiting
and able to actually push more weight.
Yeah. And then there's that, making the muscles more efficient, more dense. And then also the other physiological adaptation is synchronization of the motor units. So the more and more you strength train, the better you're going to be able to recruit muscle fibers, motor units, and you'll be able to actually use all of the strength that your body has without certain mechanisms coming in. And have you ever been in a strength program and you're almost scared to lift as heavy as you can?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, and so this is something I've been discussing with one of my friends, Lane. This is a college friend of mine, and he was talking about how we had a whole conversation about how much more he's able to lift when he knows he has like one or two spotters next to him. Mm-hmm. And there's such a huge mind shift there, because when I'm lifting by myself and I don't have a spotter, even if I have the safety racks up, I know I can fail and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But knowing that you have somebody there, you're able to recruit so much more strength than you would be without that fear. And so you kind of have to train your mind to unlock that fear. And there's also the fear of being injured if you push too hard.
That's typically my more fear than that, especially after just coming back from this back injury a bit.
Right.
It's just like, of course, I'm trying to baby it a little bit.
Right.
I will say, though, I like to lift alone. But my squats, for instance, went up tremendously whenever we got the safety straps instead of the hard safety bars.
Right, right.
And then I'm afraid I'm hurting my equipment. With these straps, they're soft, so
yeah.
I'm able to push really, really hard with the understanding that it's going to be all right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it kind of goes back to that concept of, the mother lifting the car off of a child or something like that. Everybody's heard those stories where people are just able to do ridiculous amounts of strength output in different circumstances, and you can train your brain and train your mind to access that superhuman level of strength. Mm-hmm. And it just takes a lot of practice.
Well, and there's certain lifters that can tell you that the certain mindset that they have to put themselves in before doing a competition mm-hmm. lift, for instance. And weird how sometimes to incorporate certain muscles to activate them, they'll actually touch them first. For instance, like on the bench press, you'll see sometimes power lifters will start to really press really hard into mm-hmm. their pecs, and then into their triceps. And it's just this weird mindset where it's like you're kind of prepping the brain or priming the brain.
Getting that mind-muscle connection.
Yeah, you're like, these are the muscles that need to move in the next 5 minutes, And then because of that, there's tremendous results, too, which sounds silly because you're just really only pressing on the muscle, but it's that mindset, I think, more than anything.
And then you'll see, like, power lifters, like, slapping each other's back, slapping their chest. Mm-hmm. It's not just of a macho thing. Like, they're actually using it to wake up their neuromuscular system and their,
So whenever you're programming a strength program for your clients, what's typically, let's talk about the actual types of lifts that you want to do. Just give an example, and then maybe your sets and reps.
Right. So if it's strength related, I try not to do too many big barbell lifts in one session. Mm-hmm. So I never program a barbell squat and a barbell deadlift in the same session. Sure. You can do it. If you do, make sure you deadlift before you squat. Mm-hmm. You don't want to squat and wear out your spine and then go load it up on the squat or on the deadlift. So, wait, did I say that right? Deadlift before you squat. Yep. Don't squat before you deadlift. Yeah.
You said it right.
Yeah, because deadlifts, there's a lot more room for error there, and when your spine and your back is fatigued.
Well, and then just a safety measure. When you're in a squat, you're underneath that weight. Mm-hmm. When you're deadlifting, it's in front of you, and you're okay to drop it.
Right. Exactly. So if I'm programming that, I'm gonna have two to maybe three big barbell movements. So if it's a day one, and I'll also preface this with this: if I'm programming a strength program, typically they're gonna have 3 to 4 big foundational lifts or sessions each week. I think if your goal is to lift as much weight as possible, lifting every single day is not going to be beneficial. Mm-hmm. So what I'll do is I'll Monday or workout one will tend to be like a squat and bench press day, and then you'll kind of do some smaller dumbbell type stuff. Mm-hmm. And those dumbbell things are going to be focused on improving those barbell lifts.
Right, they're accessory lifts.
They're accessory lifts that are within our mind is going to improve the barbell lifts. And then the next day is when I'll do, say, a deadlift with a barbell row and maybe like an overhead press. Mm-hmm. And then I separate those. And then the third day I'll typically do like a barbell front squat.
Sure.
or, pull-ups or heavy lat pulls, kind of stuff like that. Those are going to be kind of the big foundational movements, and then the rest of it tends to be your accessory type stuff.
Right. I really like that. How I like to break down my strength phases is actually going back to the push, pull, leg day.
Right.
And it's super easy just to make sure your push and your presses are your bench press, and then you can do like a barbell military press, right? And then pull day is doing like rows, your deadlifts. And then, of course, your leg day is primarily your squats. And then you do a bunch of accessories around that.
Lunges, glute bridges, stuff like that. Yeah, I like that too. That's a great plan too.
And then, if you want to work out more than just the 3 days a week, you could always just keep going in a cycle.
Right, right. I think that's what Veronica said she does.
Yeah.
She said she does like 6 days, and she'll do push-pull legs.
I like that. However,
that's a lot.
That's a lot, and I find for myself, I like rest days in between my workouts.
Yeah. Well, especially with how active you are too.
Right. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an anomaly. What
you are,
man.
You're a
black
superhuman.
Swan.
Black swan.
So what's your sets and your rep ranges usually for that?
So with when you're in the strength phase, typically it'll be no more than 5 sets per exercise, and that's on the high end for sure. And then it kind of depends on the goal for the person. Like, is their goal a 1 RM? Is their goal a 1 rep max?
Sure.
If so, most of the time I'll kind of do a ladder type thing, or a reverse ladder, where we'll start with 5 to 8 reps and then work our way up to our 1 RM by adding weight increasingly. I like to do it that way because you really get to prime the central nervous system to work up to your 1 rep max.
Right.
I like to do that, but sometimes I also like to do like the 5x5. That's awesome. Can't go wrong with that.
Well, and especially newbie lifters, when it's like their first time going through an actual strength phase, I always prescribe the 5x5.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
You can't go wrong. It's easy to keep up with. It's easy to program, and then your accessories. Then you can increase the reps a little bit and get a little bit more muscle activation in the smaller muscle groups.
Yeah.
But definitely the 5x5 is typically my go-to whenever somebody it's new to strength training.
For me, like kind of where I am in my journey, like I'm not super fascinated with getting my barbell squat and my bar as high as possible.
Sure.
I'm kind of to the point where I can let me see how many times I can deadlift 385 or something like that, or let me see how many times, like I want to get my rep max on my previous 1 RM, and that's kind of where I am right now. I don't have a desire to get to a 6 plate deadlift or 5 plate deadlift. I could if I wanted to, but the way I like to train is I like to cycle in and out of these different types of programs, and I feel like that helps me get the most overall result. Where I know I could stick into a strength training program for good, and I could get those numbers up as high as possible.
Yeah.
But I'm choosing to be a little bit more well-rounded,
right,
in everything that I do.
Sure. And that's kind of the thing is you got to talk to the client. You got to talk to the individual. What's their goal?
Exactly.
Right. Primarily the people that I work with are fighters, and that is such a dynamic sport.
Right.
That I actually have to incorporate it all anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
There's got to be power development. There's got to be strength. There's got to be some hypertrophy.
A lot of endurance, too.
A lot of endurance. But also being able to keep your strength while in a fatigued endurance state. So that's what I love fighting, is because it's so endless and so diverse.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. I think we talked about sets and reps, right? Tempo, whenever you're strength training, you typically want to have typically like a 4-2-2. You have a 4-second descent, a 2-second ascent, and then 2 seconds in between. That's typically the best for strength training.
Yeah. It's
slow enough to where you're going to be controlled, but not too slow where your form is going to break down on the eccentric. That's the way I like to program it.
For my newbie lifters, just pick it up and put it down. Five times.
I get that too.
Rest for a minute or two, and then pick it back up 5 times.
Right. I get that.
That's the thing, is sometimes I feel like, and we're coaches, so that it happens, but we end up kind of over explaining sometimes.
Right.
And
exactly.
it looks way more confusing than it really is.
Yeah, I get that too.
But so sometimes when I'm talking, especially to some of these, 17, 18-year-old kids that are the first time they've ever been under a bar, Like, it's simple, man. Just pick it up 5 times. Would that feel really light? Let's put on some more. Like, it's super.
You can definitely make it more simple.
I like to dumb it down for some of these, and that's how I need. Whenever I was first learning that, I had a good coach that basically talked to me like I'm 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I needed it.
Yeah.
Because I was just this ego kid that wanted to let's see how much I can lift.
Yes. I get that for sure. But it's one of those things. If you're serious about it and you literally want to maybe compete or you want to push your body as much as possible, it's one of those factors that you will need to take control of eventually.
Right.
And you did mention rest periods. If once again, if you're in that area of wanting to completely max out, take longer rest periods than you think you need. A lot of people get antsy and they're like, oh, I've been sitting here for a minute or 2 minutes. Let your body recover.
Literally be a slow moving bear lifting in there. Yes. Just mosey about, pick up the heavy weight, for your reps, set it back down, and then rest for, I'm not kidding, 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
4 or 5,
listen to an entire song.
Literally.
But I mean, that's what,
read a book.
If that's what you're training for, that's what you're training for. That's how you're going to get the most out of your strength goals.
Yeah. So I think that was good. That was a good deep dive on strength. Let's go into hypertrophy, which is my favorite to train. I really, really enjoy feeling a good squeeze, feeling a pump. I like to break down exercises to make sure that I'm hitting the muscle that's necessary for that lift. And so that's a hypertrophy training. Hypertrophy means literally increasing muscle size.
Right.
And we've made the statement before, but building strength does not necessarily mean your muscles are going to get bigger.
Right.
They will, but not near as much as someone who typically just trains in the hypertrophy stage.
Yeah. For fighters, I always say it's the difference between go muscle and show muscle.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. You look at some of these huge bodybuilders, they really don't, and they might be 265 pounds,
right,
up to 300 pounds, massive people. They don't lift a whole lot.
They're curling 25-pound dumbbells, and they're just feeling a really good squeeze. They're feeling a good pump. They're training different angles.
Yeah.
There's all these like just nitpicky areas of tweaks that you can make to just get different pump, different squeeze, different muscle breakdown in different areas.
But it was eye-opening to me because it was like, you have this little 170-pound power lifter that can out bench, out squat, and out deadlift some of these huge Greek god-looking dudes.
Oh, I mean, I don't have that much bigger muscles than you, but I'm a much bigger dude than you, and I mean, our strength is pretty comparable where you're at, and like, you are. I mean, and I probably weigh 100 pounds more than you. Well, I don't know. How much do you weigh?
I was 175 the other day.
Okay, so not quite 100, but I weigh a lot more than you, and your strength is more than mine, or about the same as mine, at least. I don't know. We'll see.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so the goal of a hypertrophy person is to target muscle groups, build certain areas, like sculpt I hate the word sculpt and tone, but you're literally paying attention to the tiny muscles. You're building the posterior deltoids. You're hitting angles of rows that hit certain areas of the lats, and it's just a whole different mindset of just pick it up and set it down. Thing.
It really is. It's focusing on specific muscle groups, which in my opinion, it's not always functional. Like there's certain lifts that you'll do that you're just like, when would you ever pick up anything like that?
Right. No, you're 100% right.
But it's totally just for the aesthetic, and if you want to look good naked or on the beach or whatever, that's the way you need to go.
Hopefully not naked on the beach, but I guess
go to France.
Those exist
there's places. There's places to go.
They exist.
It's 2023, man. You can do whatever you want these days.
You can. But should you is the question. Should you?
I would say too though that for the very newbie lifter, I actually recommend them doing a hypertrophy rather than strength right off the bat.
For sure.
First time you're picking up a bar or a dumbbell. The reason is because typically, and maybe I'm skipping ahead, but you're typically having lower weights and higher reps.
Right.
Because it's and so that just out of effect makes it a safer way to lift.
Yeah,
right?
you're building those muscle patterns. You're hopefully learning it the correct way, and you're building proper recruitment patterns, and you're really learning the movement down and getting it down before you start loading it up. That's why I tend to always start people in this range. And you're gonna, in a hypertrophy phase, you're gonna be anywhere between 3 to 5 to 6 sets of 8 to 12 typically.
Yeah.
When you go over 12, you start getting into the endurance phase for the most part.
So just rep range is typically, like I said before, it's higher reps, lower weight, or moderate weight. Because some of those guys will actually lift pretty good weight for a lot of reps.
Well, that's just relative to their strength, though.
Yeah, some of those guys get pretty strong even.
Oh, for sure.
That being said, what would you say some of the techniques or certain kind of lifts that you would program out?
Yeah, so I still, even when I'm in a hypertrophy phase, I still think barbell is king. Yeah, you just lift it with a different mindset. Mm-hmm. Compound exercises will always, no matter what phase you're in, will always be the goal to do. But at the same time, you can get amazing hypertrophy results with dumbbells or cables or bands, because it's all about the squeeze, it's all about the pump, it's all about muscle tearing, and a barbell is not necessary for that.
No,
but I still think it's king.
Yeah, well, that's the power lifter in you.
Yeah, exactly. Because I wear a little bit of all of these panties.
Right. We all do.
That was a really weird sentence.
Yeah, I just
made that up in my head.
I just skipped over it and let you have it. We'll address that later. So one of the funny things though is whenever I would say modern lifters though, a lot of them, they don't do barbell lifts as far as the bodybuilding community.
Man.
There's a lot of them. There's a video I was watching the other day, and it was this little old lady walking around one of these bodybuilding, what do they call them? Like facilities where
right.
It's like Europa, these conventions that they go to. So there's just meatheads all over there, full of steroids.
And there's string wife beaters.
Right, yeah, exactly. Anyway, this old lady's walking around and she's asking, how much do you bench? And it's just and then whenever they tell them, she'd make fun of them. But it was surprising to me how many are like, oh, I don't bench. I don't bench.
Yeah.
I don't squat.
Yeah.
I don't, like how many pull-ups can you do? I don't know. Literally, they only do machine work and they do dumbbell work.
That's true.
And I thought that was, in a way, in my mind, I'm just like, well, that's completely just against function.
Yeah, I get it.
But it's not for me.
Well, I get it. Well, I mean, and especially it's important in this phase to pay attention to your mobility, because if you if you do nothing but pump and you're not stretching it out, you're going to get pretty immobile, because there's a lot of people that live in this phase that are extremely immobile.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're just not real functional beings. They just got ballooned up muscles. And,
well, that was another one. There was a guy walking around putting a piece of tape on, like, these bodybuilders' lat muscle, and they can't reach it. They're spending 5 minutes trying to reach their lat muscle,
That's
and they
hilarious.
can't. It was so funny.
Yeah, I love that.
That's kind of the mindset of the bodybuilder.
Yeah,
hypertrophy.
And that's kind of the extreme end. Like I'll never get to that point, but I love to train this way. And the Smith machine's a lot of fun for the bodybuilding community, because it's a good, safe way to kind of use barbell movements. In a controlled range of motion. You can do tons of reps with it, not get super fatigued in the posterior chain, but get really, really good pumps. And so I'm really excited to get mine in.
Yeah.
I bought Tyson's Smith machine. Yeah, I'm so excited.
I'm excited for you to get it too.
Yeah, me too.
One thing about using machines and stuff, though, I gotta say, is a lot of guys sometimes they rely so much on that safe range of motion that they never really build the stability muscles.
100%, yeah.
So with the fighters, a lot of times it comes back to you have to do the functional lifts, because
Absolutely.
When you're picking up another body that's your size, they're not going to always be in a deadlift position, or a bench press position.
You're going to be moving in awkward ways.
So. This is kind of where sometimes the hypertrophy lifts can kind of come in handy, doing, in therapy, we call them D1 and D2 movements, diagonals and stuff,
Yeah, for sure.
But,
and so the physiological adaptation that happens in the hypertrophy phase, like we've talked about, is there's chronic hypertrophy and transient hypertrophy. Chronic is when... literally chronic, for you build long-lasting muscle, a bigger cross-sectional size of the muscle fibers, and creates a bigger muscle belly.
Yep.
And then you have transient hypertrophy, which is what's called the pump.
The pump.
And this is when you're just doing tons and tons of reps, and your muscle belly is full of blood and water and glycogen and all sorts of fluid. And the more you pump it up, the more it stays. And everybody knows the pump will go away eventually, but anytime you see a picture of somebody on Instagram that looks jacked, he probably is pumped up.
Yeah, he's pumped up and probably dehydrated, and
yeah, exactly.
It's got perfect lighting,
right,
and a little bit of Photoshop.
Yeah, a little bit.
Let's be honest.
Let's be. But this is the phase that I like to do tons of supersets. Mm-hmm. Even some you can call them giant sets or monster sets where you have 3 or 4 exercises which end up usually being like circuits, but I like to use circuits more for the endurance phase. But you can still do them in the hypertrophy as long as you're keeping the reps somewhere between 10 to 12. But yeah, it's your lifts are slow, controlled, feeling the pump, connecting the muscles. A good example I like to use for these kinds of things is like a bent over reverse fly. Mm-hmm. So many people do this wrong, especially people that don't understand muscle recruitment. Whenever we're doing a reverse fly, technically or a rear delt fly is technically for your rear delts. Mm-hmm. But what people do is do them too heavy, and they end up using all rhomboids and lats for their reverse fly.
They're rowing it at that point.
Yeah, exactly. But a bodybuilder knows that I'm supposed to try to relax my lats, relax my rhomboids, and use my posterior deltoid only.
And that's why I was saying it. For beginner lifters, it's a great way to get that mind-muscle connection.
Right, 100%.
So let's move on. Let's talk about the muscular endurance.
Yeah.
And what would you say the goal is that? Maybe it's in the name.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is in the name. But this one's different, and I do not enjoy it. As y'all know me, anything.
It's good for you.
I know, but it is good for me, and I do it from time to time. This is when I typically go over sets of 12. Typically, I'll do like 4 sets of 15 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Much lighter weight because a 15 rep barbell squat is just torture.
Right.
It's awful. But it's good for you. Mm-hmm. And this is like the only phase I get in. I'm like, oh, I'm scared of this. This is gonna suck. Like, let me do sets of 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm all right, but I go up to 12, 15.
Sure.
But it is really good for you. Our goal is to be able to use the muscles for a longer period of time.
Long duration.
Whenever you're doing a set of 15, you've most likely broken out of the glycolytic stage, and then we start working into more different types of energy systems, which end up using different energy stores, and then it starts to burn more different. Yeah. Do you train like this much?
Yeah, well, especially if I'm in fight camp, endurance training is definitely an important part of it. I incorporate a lot of slam balls. I incorporate a lot of battle rope. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of more of those where it's all out for as many. And most of the time I like to do these as Tabatas. Mm-hmm. And it's just a way to really burn out the muscle. And then after fatigue, that's the best time to work techniques too.
Oh, so yeah.
A lot of times before our class, like especially if I've got more of a technical, submission or sweep that I'm teaching my jiu-jitsu class, I'll have them warm up real heavy. Everybody's sweating, everybody's breathing hard. And so now whenever we do the technique, there's a lot less muscle incorporation and more the leverage and the technique.
Right.
So that's kind of a tool that I use too to make sure that we're building the muscle endurance, but also it's also forcing our fighters to use the technique rather than muscling through things.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
I know my clients, whenever I make them do this, they hate it so much. Yeah.
I know.
But it's so good for you. And like I said earlier, this is where I use monster sets, quad sets, circuits, where you pick different exercises and you just go around and do them with minimal rest in between. And it's really good for you. And it's the program we did that you programmed for us last month.
Right.
The battle ropes were awesome. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed doing that. That's a way that I haven't worked my muscles in a long time. Yeah. And doing stuff like sprints.
It's funny how hard it is at first and how fast you add up.
It is
adaptation
true.
is.
That's a great point.
Because at first it's like the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And then you're like 3 weeks in and you realize it's just a thing that I'm doing. Uh-huh. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
But what that really is, it's just your lactic acid tolerance.
Yep.
Your ability to your muscle realizes like, your threshold for tolerance for that work output is higher.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's super important for a fight.
100%.
You got 5-minute rounds. You got to be able to punch and kick and push off opponents and be able to take people down in a tired state. Like that lactic acid tolerance is super important.
Yeah, That's awesome. Yeah, there's literally a concept called the lactic threshold that you can train to be higher and higher and higher.
Yep.
And I just ignored that for a long time, and I let it get low. But you're right, dude. Within 2 weeks of doing it, even I mean, I was able to jump rope easily for 3 minutes, and it was just a warm up for me to.
Yep, that's exactly where you get to the.
Yeah.
And I would say for any athlete, it's super important for them to do these type of things. If you're playing football, you're playing tennis, you're doing any of these things that require an entire hour of a game. Where you do have rest periods, but there's also this go, stop, go, stop. I definitely recommend training for it.
Yeah, strongmen train in this phase a lot too, also, because a lot of the strongman events are requiring you to access strength under exhaustion and being able to, pull the truck for as far as you can, as far as you can, as fast as you can, and so and I think they call that kind of like work output, work tolerance. Anyways, that's a fun one to do. It's just I tend to ignore it more than I should, but it is important.
It's important. I don't ignore it. I definitely try to incorporate it into my programs. That being said, some of these techniques and stuff we're talking about incorporating into a program, it's never been my entire program though.
Right.
Like it's almost one of those accessories. And, whenever I programmed you guys, it was just a thing that you had to do at least once. You had to get through all those workouts once a week.
Exactly.
I don't care where you fit it in, just put it in. And that's how I like to do it.
I like that.
And it makes the scared of it, like you said,
right,
more tolerable because you get to just kind of choose, am I feeling it today or but of course there is the time where you procrastinate it.
Yeah,
and
it's Sunday and I still have all these rounds to do.
And you better get them done.
Yeah, I get that. No, you're right. It was a lot easier for me to tackle it that way than just having to commit like a 4-week or 5-week endurance program. So that was definitely a great idea. And like I said, I ended up using a lot of those things like for my warm up before I went and lifted, and I liked that a lot.
Yep, it's a good thing to do. Moving on, let's talk about power.
Power, yes.
Power output and all that kind of thing. What would you say the goal for power is?
So power, it's once again in the name, but it's lifting heavy weight as fast as possible. Quickly, short, powerful bursts of movement. And I think the biggest mistake that the average person does is they ignore this phase because they think it's just for athletes.
Yeah.
And while that's partly true, like an average person probably doesn't have to be able to do that, but
they don't have to incorporate core strength and explode off of a line or throw a ball as hard and as fast as they can. It's true. It doesn't necessarily go into regular everyday life. However, I'm of the mindset I'd rather have it and not need it than where it's a point in life where I need it and I don't have it.
Right. Yeah, you gotta be able to access those fast twitch muscle fibers, and if all you do as a bodybuilder is slow, controlled movements, you're not practicing that fast twitch, fast response of a muscle. There's actually some really cool studies that have come out that have trained the senior population to improve their explosive power in preventing falls. Doing a short explosive burst, like even if it's just sitting in a chair, just doing a really, really quick march as fast as possible. It's going to help them be able to kind of wake up those fast twitch muscle fibers that have been dormant for years and years. Like if they trip on a rock, they're able to quickly access that fast twitch muscle fiber to catch themselves with their foot. If they don't have access to the fast twitch muscle fibers, they trip on a rock and it's like, and I can barely like catch myself.
Man, well, think about how often you catch yourself from falling. And
we don't even know it when we're young.
Yeah. Like there's been times where you're getting out of the shower and you're just like, oh, stumble. Yeah. But I got myself. No, and you don't even think about it.
Right.
Well, you start thinking about it whenever you don't have that quick twitch there and you hit the floor every time.
Yeah. So you with older parents or you if you're older yourself, like practice your power training. And what that looks like in a gym is like people think power training, oh, okay, I got to work on my hang cleans and my power cleans and my snatches. Like, those are great power movements. But you can literally work on accessing your power with a dumbbell chest press or a machine chest press. Yeah. It's just all about how you work it and how you move it. Do a quick explosive burst as fast as you can and rest for a little bit in between reps.
Yep. Well, Well, the program that I had you guys on, there was definitely some power lifts in there where it was like, I don't, the weight is actually dropped a bit, and it's more about, I'm not worried about even your rep range. It's more just the speed of the bar.
The speeding, yes.
Yeah, just push it as fast as you can.
Exactly. Like I like to do like hex bar jump squats with these. Like just jumping as high as you can, landing, reset, take a break, do it again. Yeah. You don't want to do these things to exhaustion, because the biggest mistake people make is doing power movements for cardio.
Right.
Like let's do some box jumps. The box jumps was made to practice your vertical jump, which is a power movement, which is a plyometric movement. But people do them, CrossFit, to exhaustion.
Yeah. And then you skid your knees.
For the means of cardio, and then you end up hurting yourself.
My shins hurt just thinking about it.
Oh, I know. I mean, yes, it's a great, you're going to get good cardio. You're going to be able to jump a little bit. But at what cost?
Yeah, at what cost? This is where I really like to work bands,
Yes.
because you can use that constant resistance from the band. And then if you start incorporating your compound movements like your squat, or you add a box squat with bands, you talk about a power workout. You can feel those really quickly, and even whenever I do it, I feel the difference in the activation of the muscle.
100%. Yeah.
It's not like where I'm driving for the heavy squat, where I slow, just activation, pull.
Right.
Instead, it's bang, go. And then, but I can actually feel the difference in the muscle too.
Yeah, absolutely. Bands are a great way to do this. Like, if you're going to do like some wood chops with bands, like for a tennis player, or even baseball, or any sort of rotational sport, fighting even, like, it's a really great safe way to do it, because you're not likely to hurt yourself, because bands are so safe, unless it pops on you, and it just hurts like a...
And then you just got to buy a new one.
Yeah.
Watch the dry rot on them. They get old. They deteriorate.
If you start seeing any cracking, throw them away.
Just get another one. They're cheap enough. Go get another one.
Great way to do strength movements, or power movements, without creating a whole lot of damage or possibility of injury. And so I think I kind of explained the physiological adaptations that are happening. It's literally you're improving the recruitment of the fast twitch muscle fibers. Everybody has fast twitch muscle fibers. Some people are born with more slow twitch than fast twitch. You can train slow twitch muscle fibers to act more like fast twitch muscle fibers. But genetics play a huge factor on your ratio of fast twitch to slow twitch.
Right.
But anyways,
I think the point of today's podcast really is just incorporate everything, though.
Exactly.
Don't get stuck in a rut where you're. And I understand your goals. But I guess my point is, to reach your goals, make sure you don't neglect other things just because.
Right. Exactly.
Don't. What am I really trying to say?
Don't marry one training method.
Yeah, don't marry one. Exactly. Yeah, and get blinded by your goal.
Yeah,
and neglect other things.
Yeah, and this is exactly how I program for myself, and I program for my clients. Is we go in and out of all these different phases, because that's the best way to progressive overload is going in and out of these different types of phases. Because if you get your body used to a strength training adaptation, the best way to not the best way, but a great way to progressively overload that is go into a hypertrophy phase. Your body, it's a whole new stimulus. That's why if you do this, you almost always will find yourself getting sore more and more, because you're using your muscles in different ways. Every program that you do.
Burnout too. Just prevents you from getting tired of the same thing in the mundane.
Exactly.
Kind of adds some fun into your workouts.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's talk about, before we close up, let's talk about how these different training methods can help weight loss or fat loss. I always make that mistake, because there's a huge difference between weight loss and fat loss. For the majority of people that I see in the fitness industry, their end goal is to lose fat for the most part. I know fighting's a different thing. But I would say probably 80% of people that are learning about fitness and into fitness come for fat loss. There's your hard gainers out there that are looking for fat gain, but that's not as common in my circle, especially.
Yeah.
But
in my circle, it's actually kind of common.
Yeah.
There's these
in the fighter circle,
the skinny guys that want to learn how to fight.
I get that.
And their rails are like, we got to you need to get underneath that bar.
Yeah.
It's weird how they
eat some cheeseburgers.
They resist it though.
Yeah.
It's so weird, because they get so good at being fast, and that's their thing. But I'm telling you, if you don't want to get bullied in the clinch or get bullied on the ground,
right,
put some slabs of meat on them.
Calvin's still getting stronger and stronger.
Dude, he's lifting a lot. He's
awesome.
Yeah, I'm proud of him. Yeah. I think a big part of it for him was just finding a routine that worked for him, and then getting his diet.
Yeah.
Protein.
Mm-hmm.
And it always, I know we this ain't really a diet day for our podcast, but as far as none of this is going to help you at all if you're not fueling your body to reach the goal at all.
Exactly.
Get your protein in, get your calories in, meet your macros.
Right. Yeah. You're not going to get as strong as you can. You're not going to get as bigger muscles as you can. You're not going to have the most endurance. You're not going to have the most power if you are underfueled.
All right.
That's a huge point. You have to fuel these workouts.
Yep.
If you are chronically under eating and trying to reach all of these goals, you are going to be extremely limited in how much you can do.
Which, once again, with fighters, and I'm sure powerlifters too, whenever they're getting closer to competition, they have to meet a certain weight.
Right.
And so they're like freaking out. So they're trying to lift all this heavy weight with under their nutrients isn't where it needs to be because they're so afraid of the number.
Right. Well, and just the societal pressure to be skinny and not to be fat.
Right.
There's that too. But as far as these relate to fat loss, and I've said this in the podcast before, and I'll say it again, I do my best not to relate my training to fat loss. I try to relate my training to these 4 points: building strength, building muscle, building endurance, building power. And I relate my fat loss to what I freaking put in my mouth.
That's it.
And if you can think about it like that, and not, you're gonna be able to stay away from the insanity workouts. You're gonna be able to stay away from all the cardio focused group exercise stuff. That do this class because you'll burn 500 calories. You'll cardio. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you retrain your brain to think as your nutrition as the means of fat loss, as long as you have that added stimulus of strength training in some way or the other, I think that's when you really win.
It's interesting because, it's literally not doing something that's going to actually make you lose fat. It's not putting the carb in your mouth, not putting the extra calorie in your mouth. Right. But it's so difficult.
Yeah, it's hard.
And I think we all struggle with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have the common Western diet, the common Western
goes back to how we started this podcast. We live in the easiest time ever. Our problem is we eat too much.
We have too much access to
food. Yeah, not like, I hope we have enough to get through winter this year.
Right.
It's the opposite. We have too much.
Yeah. Too much junk, too much hyper palatable, high calorie, nutritionless food.
Sure.
And so limit that intake, hit your protein goals. And what these 4, if you train in one of these 4 or 5 goals, your metabolism is going to respond, and you are going to be hungry. You're going to be fueling your muscles. Your metabolism's going to spike, like I said, and then if you control your diet, hit your protein goals, man. If you do it all right, your body will respond and lose the fat.
Well, that's the thing, really. You talk about losing fat. If you increase the amount of calories your body needs just to function daily by building larger muscle bellies, requiring more because you're going to be strength training 3 or 4 times a week,
right?
You're going to need more calories. And if you don't fill those calories, you don't feed those calories, well, suddenly it's going to pull from fat storages to fuel itself.
Right.
And that's kind of the idea.
You
know, if you're on a cut, if your whole goal is really to lose weight and look better, then that's the idea, is you have to necessarily burn more calories than you need, or burn more calories than you're intaking.
Yeah. And we don't do that through burning manually. We do that through putting on expensive tissue, which is muscle.
Yep.
Muscle is an expensive tissue. It requires a lot of energy to maintain, and that's the trifecta there.
Right.
We'll have to do a whole podcast about this because it's extremely difficult to build strength, to build muscle, to build power while in a cut. And it's hard to do that and lose fat at the same exact time.
And we definitely need to do a podcast about it, because I would dare say it's not impossible, but highly, highly unlikely that you're going to be able to do that effectively.
Yeah.
Newbie lifters are a little bit different.
Of course, yeah.
But if you've been doing this for a little bit, you've been sticking onto a program, and now you're wanting to build muscle, lose weight, all at the same time. We got to break that down a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
In my opinion, the proper way to do that is to first start out lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Just start lifting. Don't change anything in your diet. Just lift. Build some muscle.
Build the muscle.
Once the muscle's built, your cut's going to be easier anyway. Mm-hmm. And the sad part is you will lose some of that strength gains once you start your cut.
Yeah,
and it's
part of it.
It's part of it. But when you have those abs and you're all happy about that, you'll miss your muscle. So then you'll start bulking again.
Exactly.
And now you miss your abs, so you start cutting again. It's this vicious cycle.
That's the cycle. Mini bulk, mini cut, bulk, cut, bulk, cut, and as long as you can keep your behaviors in check, I think you'll be set up well.
Mm-hmm.
You have anything else?
No, man, this is a good podcast. I thought
I enjoyed it.
Yep.
All right, everybody. We thank you for supporting us. Keep sharing our episodes. Keep liking, following. Check us out on Instagram.
Yeah.
When you share our posts or put them on your story or whatever, it helps us reach so many more people.
Tremendously.
So please consider doing that for us. We would love to have your support there. Mm-hmm. And we hope you all have a great week. And let's see, I got a band gig this weekend. I'm excited. We're going to Portales, New Mexico.
All right.
We got us a tour bus, and we're going on the road. And we got some groupies to go with us.
Ooh.
Anyways. Not really. We got some wives and kids going with us.
Yeah. Those are groupies.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so y'all be praying for that. Actually, wait, as this releases, it will already have happened.
Oh, that's true.
So y'all don't pray for that then. But it'll be good. I'm excited. We're going to have a lot of students. We're leading worship for a Disciple Now.
Eat right, Joe.
I know, that's always tough. They always feed us so well.
Yeah, eat right.
Yeah.
Put down the pizza.
I will try. Uh-huh. I'm just joking. I won't. All right. Thank you guys. We'll see you guys next week, and check back in with us next time.
Yep. Much love.
All right. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to the Progressive Overload podcast. We're honored to be a small part of your day. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or are interested in sponsoring our efforts, please feel free to reach out via email. Find us at progressiveoverloadpod@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe and follow our podcast so you'll be notified when our next episode drops.
And as always, you can help us reach the masses by sharing our podcast with your friends and family. And then check us out on Facebook and Instagram to follow our own personal journeys and get an inside look on our day-to-day lives. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.